Hey everyone, I am Kaustuvi and you are watching fineLEARN. This is part 2 from the lecture where we are talking about the dawn of history in the deep south, the rise of history in the southernmost part of the Indian peninsula. First, let us recall the important points that we have discussed in part 1. If you have not gone through part 1, the link is in the description box. You can just check it out there. As we have discussed, the elements of a historical period or the characteristics which represent a historical period, for example, use of writings, state formation, then rise of social classes, etc. These elements, they did not appear in southern India till around 300 to 200 BC. Fine. And up till this period, this area was inhabited by megalithic builders. We will not talk about megalithic builders again in detail, but in short, we learn about the megalithic builders from their graves, right? The megaliths where they bury the dead along with the tools and implements that they used in their lives, right? Megalithic builders inhabited southern India. We also have seen the rise of three early kingdoms in the south: the Pandya kingdom, the Chola kingdom and the Chera kingdom, which we also refer to as Kerala. So we are talking about the southernmost part of the Indian peninsula. If we locate these kingdoms on the map, Pandya kingdom, with its capital at Madurai, it occupied the southernmost part of Indian peninsula and the southeastern part, right? And if we take Pandyas as a reference, the Chola kingdom laid towards the northeastern part of the Pandyas, and if we talk about the Chera kingdoms, it covers major part of the modern day Kerala state. Alright, we also talked about the flourishing trade, both internal and foreign trade, that these three kingdoms of South India carried out with the West, especially with the Roman Empire. When we talk about the items of export, the main items were cotton, silk, right, then ivory, then pearls, stones, and also spices, for example, pepper, turmeric, ginger, etc., right? So this was all that we have talked about in our previous lecture in detail, or we have learned about these things, right? Now let us talk about the purse and the sword. What was the main source of revenue of these states? As we have talked about trade, both internal and foreign trade, that was the most important source of revenue of these kingdoms, right? And transit duties were also collected. From whom? From merchants who carried their goods from one place to another, because they were very much into trade, right? And so that trade could be carried on conveniently, the state also employed soldiers to keep a vigil on the roads. Fine. Then again, as we have discussed earlier, these kingdoms were continuously into wars amongst themselves. Alright, there were continuous wars going on amongst these kingdoms, and the spoils of wars they added to the royal revenue. Fine. Again, the southernmost part of India was very fertile, because of which these kingdoms, they could produce paddy, ragi, sugarcane, fruits, then spices. Pepper was in great demand in the West, right? So all these were produced in surplus, and a regular income could be collected from agriculture. So these are the different sources of revenue that were collected by the states, and these states were extremely rich and they were extremely prosperous. Fine. Because of the revenue, the states, they could maintain a huge army of chariots, elephants, cavalry, infantry, etc., right? So this is about the revenue of the states. Now let us talk about the rise of social classes. Initially, the society was tribal, but with the improvement in agriculture, the society became agriculture-based, and then slowly a system like that of the Brahminical system started appearing, and Brahmanism started taking roots in the society. So Brahmanas, they appeared in the Tamil land in the Sangam age, and we see that most of the Brahmanas, they acted as poets. This was the Sangam age, right? Brahmanas, they acted as poets, and they were paid handsomely. They were paid in cash, they were given land, horses and even elephants. Although we do not find the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas as regular classes, but then we do find the ruling class that was called Arasar. The captains of the army were called Inari, they were titled Inari. The civil and the military offices were held under rich peasants who were called Vallalas, and the agricultural work was done by laborers who were called Karaisier, and they were also women who worked as agricultural laborer. Fine. So try to remember these terms because they sometimes appear in MCQs. We also see a very sharp social inequality in the society because the upper classes, they lived in brick houses, whereas the lower classes, they lived in small huts. Again, the upper classes, they did not do agriculture on their own. They had laborers who worked for them in their fields. Fine. So a sharp social inequality was present in the society. We also find very low class artisans like the Pulayans who made rope charpais, that is rope woven beds or cots. We also see several tribes and some outcasts who suffered extreme poverty, which shows that there was great inequality in the society that was prevalent. And we see the dominance of Brahmanas and the ruling class. However, a very acute caste distinction was not present in the early Sangam age. So this is about the rise of social classes. Now talking about the beginnings of Brahmanism, as we have said, Brahmanism started taking roots in the society, and the society and the state, it started developing under the impact of Brahmanism. The kings of these empires, they carried out Vedic sacrifices, they paid handsomely to the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas, they also involved in disputes with the Jainas and the Buddhist monks who appeared during this period in the Tamil land. The chief god that was worshipped by the people was Murugan, who was also called Subramanya. Fine. Worship of Vishnu, worship of Shiva, although we see it in a later phase, it was not very prominent in the early Sangam age. Alright. Cremation was slowly introduced, but again we find the continuance of megalithic burial in some places of southern India. Alright. Now, if we talk about the Tamil language and Sangam literature, first, what is a Sangam? What is the meaning of Sangam? Sangam means an assembly or a college of poets. Here, an assembly of Tamil poets. Fine. And these Sangams or assemblies, they were held or they prospered under royal patronage. And when we talk of royal patronage, mainly they prospered under the patronage of Pandya kings. Pandya kings. The capital of the Pandya kingdom was Madurai, and these Sangams mainly were held in Madurai. Although according to Tamil legends, there were a huge number of Sangams that were held and a huge number of poets who actually participated in these Sangams, but we do not have an exact data about the number of Sangams that were held or the exact period in which these Sangams were held. But then we have evidence that Sangams were held under royal patronage of the Pandya kings basically, and they were held in Madurai. Fine. The Sangam literature, what are they? They represent the earliest Tamil literature, the earliest literature of South India. Alright, earliest literature of South India. Although we do not have the exact date or exact period in which they were composed, but the Sangam age covers a period from around 300 BC to around 300 AD. So this is the Sangam age or the Sangam period that is considered. And the literature, the Sangam literature that is available, that was compiled around 300 to 600 AD. These were compiled in this period. Alright. And if we talk about inscriptions, apart from the Sangam literature, we also have some short inscriptions that are found from this period, from around 100 to around 200 BC. Some short inscriptions are found in natural caves that were written in Brahmi script. So no wonder we have sufficient literature from this period. We have sufficient Sangam literature from this period. And when we talk of Sangam literature, there are some major works, there are some minor works, and we also have epics written during this period. And based on the context of the literature, we can again classify them as agam, which refers to subjective themes. Subjective themes, for example, love and affection. Again, we have puram, which refers to objective themes. For example, they talked about wars, alright, objective themes. So, we have sufficient literature from this period, the Sangam literature. Then we also have archaeological evidence of this from this period, and again we have foreign accounts, for mainly the Greek accounts and the Roman accounts, which speak about the Sangam age. All this literature, they speak about the society, the polity, the economy of this period in the deep southern part of Indian peninsula, right? And when we talk about the decline of the Sangam age, we have the rise of the Kalabras. The rise of the Kalabras, who ruled the Tamil land from around 300 AD. So the rise of Kalabras from around 300 AD marks the end of the Sangam age. So this is about the Sangam literature, or the Sangam age, early Tamil kingdoms that we have talked about. This is the first phase of history, or as the name goes, the dawn of history in the deep south. Again, we have a later chapter, not the immediate one, but after 2 to 3 lectures, we have another chapter which talks about the second phase of history in the deep south. We'll see different modifications in all these, like the society, the religion, language. We'll see a lot of differences from this period, right? In the next chapter, we will talk about crafts, trade and towns in the post-Mauryan age. That's all for now. Hope you liked the video. Put down your comments and make sure you subscribe to the channel so we bring to you more of such lectures. See you with another lecture soon. Till then, keep learning.